Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, good morning, everyone. Great to be back. Looking forward to three more times after this. Yes, I would love to welcome any questions. Doesn't need to be right now. Certainly, if you have them, either put them in the chat. Jason or Dennis or Colleen can monitor that. But seriously, please unmute yourself, interrupt me. I've tried to create these sessions to be as much of a hopefully answering some very common questions along the way. I think anytime someone can chime in with an idea or a thought that you had or a reaction, it does just create great dialogue for the rest of the group. So please, I welcome that. So if anyone doesn't take themselves off mute right now, just a little bit of a recap, and then I will share my screen, but a little bit of a recap. So the purpose of these 4 meetings that then end in the 5th one with the culmination of tying these two concepts together, because they do go hand in hand. The purpose of them is not to make you an expert. I'm happy to hear that perhaps there was a nugget here or there, or some language or some metaphors that were used. That type of stuff is certainly plug and play right after these sessions. But as far as, my gosh, I'm either completely new to this one or that one or both, and in 2 sessions will that give me everything I need to go and open a case and close a case? The answer is no. So this is just laying that foundation for overview of everything. And then from there, I think it would be great to, have the Wella leadership team basically say, all right, what are our next steps? Where do we need to hone in on? Where do we need to go deeper, and so on and so forth. For example, today, since we are getting into some of the solution on the retirement income side of it, the WBC side of it, I'm going to show you some examples. I'm going to go over client situations more for comprehension and understanding, and highlighting a few really key points. I'm not going to pull up the calculator. We're not going to build a case together. Candidly, that's the easier part of all of this, but that can certainly be a follow-up. So with that, let me go ahead and share my screen. And again, please type in the chat or just come off mute. Let me make sure I've got 3 screens here. Let me make sure I share the right one. Okay. All right. So just a little bit of a recap from last time. Really, it was all that session was all about, first and foremost, level setting. What is the purpose of someone saving money long term? And ultimately, if we know that the number one fear of people heading into retirement is running out of money, a little bit of a background on how did we get here, right? I mean, why is that? And if you recall, it was leading into the first point that we have been conditioned, your clients, your prospects have been conditioned to think about this retirement game as a wealth building game. And what I mean by that is the entire focus is around accumulation rather than what is income in retirement going to be, right? So we just did a brief little thing going through it of the objective is not to build wealth as large as possible. That's very important. Hear me on that. None of this is about this is better than that. My daddy can beat up your daddy. It's none of that, but it's around making sure that we are measuring the right objectives that we're after. All right. So it's not just about growing our wealth. It is about positioning our savings in the form of income. But because of a series of items, one of the reasons, and we framed this around why the retirement dream is failing, right? And that first reason is because we've been conditioned to only look at our wealth through the lens of accumulation rather than income. And I think sometimes that's also partly because, hey, retirement may be too far off into the horizon for some people, right? So it seems natural for me to look at my statement and say, oh, cool, I earned 14% last year, rather than tying the two together of this is what my paycheck's going to be in retirement. Okay, but it's your job as the educator with your clients, and I think that's a key word, educator. It's your job as the educator to level set what the path that they are on looks like, and allow them to come to their own realization of, does this make me happy? Or rather, if whatever it is I'm after, if it could be better based on however I'm defining the word better, when would you want to know about it? And I think most people would say, well, yesterday, right? So it was this idea of accumulation rather than income. So we went through the mountain analogy, and we have to begin with the end in mind. I gave you a couple of analogies here. The one of the destination of a vacation. If I surprised Allison, right, she would need to know, hey, are we going to the beach or are we going to the mountains? Do I need my swimsuit or my snow gear? I made this comment too. Anytime that you could use an analogy there tied to your prospect or your client's profession, whether they are a teacher, a firefighter, a business analyst, whatever it might be, bonus points. Then we introduced this whole idea of, all right, once we've level set the problem or the purpose, what is the problem? And the problem is we cannot answer these two questions: how long and what rate of return. Okay, then not only do we not know the answer to those two problems, the rules of our money change 180 degrees from when we're putting money into our accounts to taking money out. And this is when we went through that interactive calculator. I'll pull it up here, showing you the difference between constant rates of return versus all of the fluctuating returns that we all get, right? And so we went over this time period, and it was 1970 to 1989, the 12.7 linear, but we get all of the actual rates of return, the fluctuating, and boom, we went broke. So that introduced the idea to us that the way the financial services industry has attempted to solve the problem of not knowing how long I'm going to live and how my money is going to perform was through these withdrawal rate simulations. And so we went through this chart determining the probability of not running out of money. We laid the basis for where the 4% rule came from, and then we looked at, you know what, the 4% rule isn't so good anymore, and people are saying it's not going to work. So the financial services industry has really kind of settled on, it is less than that, but we got confirmation from the client in this moment and clarification around, this is not an earnings rate, this is a spending rate, around 3.5% being quote unquote safe. Okay, so that then led us into reason number 3, the unintended consequence of just being, following the masses and recognizing that, okay, I guess this is the way I need to do it, is generating very, very low income, $1 million, 35,000 of income. We level set this. We looked at Kara and Daniel and did some income projections for them that, they're making great money. They're going to build their wealth, to these great balances, but the combined income was going to be $100,000, just less. And so it really was highlighting the fact of, hey, look, retirement is supposed to be this time where we have all of the time on our hands, and now we have money to do the things that we want to do, and it's just simply not working for people. Okay, so this led us into ultimately where we were at, and we said, look, once we've identified the purpose as income, we understand that the rules change especially after we've highlighted the problem. The third one is we need to not settle for these low income rates, but rather we need to focus on a strategy first and foremost that is going to get the maximum use out of every dollar we save moving forward. And what I mean by that is, if I'm choosing to save $10,000 a year long term, then at each one of those dollars, all 10,000 of them should be positioned in a way that is going to give me the highest income when I retire. That's the efficiency correlation that I'm talking about there. If the purpose is generating income, then I want every dollar to provide me the most amount of income. So to be clear here, what we are really measuring and what we're isolating is not your account balance. This is really cool. I just had this thought. It's not your account balance, because if we were trying to look at someone's account balance and provide improvement, I would say 9 times out of 10, we're having an asset allocation discussion. We're having a, hey, can you take an in-service distribution and roll it over into this IRA that I'll manage for you and give you better options, and so on and so forth. All valid and important discussions. I want to be clear. Hear me on that. Okay. But what type of discussions are those? Those are accumulation discussions. Okay. So we are not, what we're really after, what we're isolating is the cash flow. We're isolating the savings commitment that you have from this point moving forward. I can't undo anything that you've done. Now, again, for any of you, those of you that are registered and you're in the investment space, again, meet with your clients and come up with the best asset allocation for the most opportunity for growth per their risk tolerance. Okay, but I'm talking about the money that is being added to their overall plan. Okay, so that leads us into today. Again, I can only see one thing in the chat. If you have a question, type it in there or interrupt yourself. Okay, so now the rest of the story. Now where we go from here, right? And before I get into some of these solutions, and again, today is going to be just like last time, in and out of role play, but recognizing that my audience here are financial professionals, and you all are wired to think differently than many of your clients. So we need to go deeper in certain areas like, hey, Brent, how could the insurance company do that? You're likely not going to get that question framed that way from a client. You may, but it might be a little bit different. Okay, so as we get into it, here's what I want to picture to you. I want you to understand this is our starting point. Let's say that your client is saving $10,000 per year. Okay. Over here on the left, the way we're looking at this is most people put all 10,000 of that into, I'm just going to call it growth. The idea of accumulation, because that's what they're after. Okay. As we introduce this new paradigm of thinking to them, this new thought that we need to begin with the end in mind being income, folks, our starting point is the same $10,000 that you are saving. It's not, hey, to work with me or to provide results for you, you need to make that 10,000 15 or 20 or whatever it might be. Whatever their starting point is, because we went over this last time, that we can't help people that aren't choosing to pay themselves first. And I think that's a big piece there, the choosing to pay themselves first versus, hey, sometimes life throws us curveballs and we can't, things are just tight. We're paycheck to paycheck. We can't do much for our financial future. Doesn't mean we can't help them. It's just through a different set of work or a different context rather than having a retirement income discussion. Okay, so the starting point is the same $10,000, but what I'm after is this word efficiency. So how can we put some of this into growth and some of this into income, future income creation? And it might be $5,000 growing into growth and $5,000 going into income. But recognize here that we're talking about the exact same outlay. If everything is going into their right pocket, some still go into their right pocket, but now some's going to their left pocket. Okay, so as I get into drawing this out and teeing up the solutions here, I want you to do not forget this piece. They are saving the exact same amount of income or exact same amount of money in both situations. Okay, now let's go a little bit further. And again, speaking to this group is a little bit different than a client. We would tee this up a little bit differently, but it's no secret that whole life insurance is part of this play here. Whole life insurance is what unlocks, is what I'm calling this income play here. All right. So we're going to have all of our investments, our wealth accumulation buckets, but then we're going to introduce whole life insurance to their plan. And because of whole life insurance being on their side of the ledger, when they go to retire, they're going to have two different options available to them to generate income that the person over here on the left that is only positioning their cash flow towards accumulation simply does not have available to them. Okay, so it is the acquisition of whole life insurance that is what makes these next two options that I'm going to go over with you here in a second possible. Now, as we all know, the way that whole life insurance is priced is it is age sensitive and it's health sensitive. So the best time to buy it is yesterday for everyone. Okay, but hear me on this, whether someone is 30 years from retirement or 5 years from retirement, 3 years from retirement, these principles can still work. The case design and the structure may need to change between those two dramatic situations at both ends of the spectrum, but the principles still apply. Okay, and the reason for whole life insurance fitting in here before we go forward is I want you just to answer yourself these three questions. Number one, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I recognize you have a 401k. Is there any rule out there that says your 401k can't lose value? I'm going to say, well, no. Okay. I also see that you have a brokerage account sitting over here, or a Roth IRA, fill in the blank, brokerage account. Is there any rule out there that says your brokerage account can't lose value? No. I see you also own some real estate. Is there any rule out there that says your real estate can't lose value? No. Okay, last question. Is there any rule out there that says all three of those can't lose value in the same year? Well, no. And it's because those are all correlated assets. Whole life insurance is being introduced at this point because it is, for a number of reasons, but I want you to just think of it like this, because it is contractually guaranteed to increase every single year, no matter what. 2008, 2009, when things were going crazy, accounts and properties and values were going backwards, anyone that owned whole life insurance guaranteed to increase, right? Because the outside factors do not directly tie into the year-to-year performance. Okay. I want you to also think of it like this. You are going to see that what's critical here is this word balance. You know, when I first was introduced to WBC, if someone were to ask me, you know, hey, how much whole life insurance should someone have? My thought was always more. They should always have more. And then when I found out that from a retirement income planning perspective, someone could have too much, they could be out of balance. This became such an eye-opener. And what you'll find is also a wow factor if done properly for your clients. Okay, so I'm not saying scrap all your investments and put it into whole life insurance. There is going to be a proper balance here. Think of it, I'll give you another analogy. Think of it with food. Okay, if you go and make this beautiful meal for your husband or your wife or your significant other tonight, and you forget all of you nail it, you follow the recipe perfectly, you crush it, but you forgot all of the seasoning. It might look good, it might have the right texture, but it's not going to taste nearly as good as it could, right? Whole life insurance is the seasoning to your investment portfolio. If you just eat a plate full of seasoning or a plate full of salt, it's not going to taste very good. But proper balance, proper sprinkle, now you now have a well balanced and well tasting food. Okay, so again, I want you just to, I'm level setting your mindset here. Same amount of cash flow, proper balances, not too much of one or the other, and just a nice complement to the great work your client is already doing. Let's roll. So option number one, this would be the idea of, hey, and I can send you guys this recording someday. I did a webinar back in the day. It was a client-facing webinar called No Pension, No Problem. And this is for those clients that do not have a pension, but they like the idea of having a guaranteed paycheck or playcheck show up to some degree throughout their retirement. All right. So what option one is all about is, how do I not only create a pension for myself, but have the results be such that without this pension, my income would be less. All right. And here's what I want you to envision. Both sides of this. You're climbing up that mountain, right? And you come to a fork in the road. And the fork to the left says, hey, if you keep doing what you're doing, just focusing on growth or accumulation, you're being a good steward of your money, you're socking money away, things are great. But if that's your only focus, your end results may not be to the degree in which you were expecting. But nonetheless, this individual takes that path. And again, do not pay attention to the numbers I'm going to use here. It's just to prove a few points. Let's say that this is a 45-year-old individual and they're saving $10,000 a year and they're going to retire at 65. So we got a 20-year window here. And for those next 20 years, if they put all $10,000 into their 401k, based off of what they've already had and whatever rate of return they're going to get, that future value like we did last time, right? Let's just say for this example, they would end up with $1 million at age 65, 20 years from now. Okay. Now, as we went over last time, that $1 million, that is the job number one now becomes creating income, right? And what did we go over that was going to be that quote unquote safe withdrawal rate? And we settled on 3.5%, right? So at 3.5%, that will generate $35,000 per year, non-guaranteed. High probability of success that you won't run out, but it is not guaranteed to you. Okay. And that's it. Like this is by and large. And again, we think with bell curve, right? You've got some clients out there that grow their wealth by non-traditional assets. They get into all sorts of things. You've got some people on this end that perhaps aren't doing much, but it's that majority of people in the middle. This is what they're facing. It's set it and forget it, grow my wealth, and then golly, I don't want to run out. So my broker, my advisor, what I read in Kiplinger is telling me 3.5% is what I can withdraw. This is their world, y'all. Okay. So now we look backwards. We say, gosh, man, I'm 65. Here's my situation. I got $1 million. That's awesome. 35,000. That's not so great. You know what? When I was at that fork in the road one time, I was talking to that girl, Colleen from Wella, and she was telling me something. What was it that she said again? Let me look in this crystal ball and go backwards and relive that moment. And when we were at that fork in the road, Colleen and Jason and others from this firm, Wella, were telling me that, you know what, that $10,000 a year that you're saving, perhaps putting all of it into your 401k, is positioning you for great growth opportunities. But you know what, when you get to retirement, your income may not be as high as what it otherwise could be. So what was it that she said? Oh, I got it. It was, if I would have used some of that $10,000 and purchased whole life insurance, all I remember is that when I got to retirement, I was going to be able to create that pension like grandma and grandpa had. So let me go back and relive that and then see if I can fast forward and see what my financial life would have looked like. And here's what it would have looked like. Because they weren't putting the full $10,000, and let's just make this simple, they're going to put $5,000 into the 401k and $5,000 they're going to purchase life insurance at age 45, and then we fast forward to 65, okay? Because they're only putting half of their money into the 401k, when they get to retirement, their 401k balance is less. It's $750,000. Now, again, I just have to reiterate here. It's not because they chose to retire sooner. It's not because the asset allocation was different. It's not because there was a market crash right before they retired. The reason it's less is because they simply didn't put all $10,000 in there every year. So it's a smaller balance. And they used some of that, in this example, 5,000, some of it to buy whole life insurance. And over time, whole life insurance comes with a death benefit that grows. And so on the day they retired at 65, the person has $750,000 in their 401k, and they have a $750,000 death benefit. Now, notice I'm not saying anything about the cash value for some of you that are immediately like wondering about that. We'll go to that next. Cash value is completely irrelevant in this discussion. Okay. So person A, they retire with $1 million in their 401k, and that's it. Person B has 750 of in their 401k and 750 of death benefit. But here's what this individual now gets to do. On the day they retire, I want you to almost close your eyes and like think of this like cartoon image of holding a sack of money. There's you holding your sack of $750,000, and you're just extending it. You're holding it out, and you're holding it out to the insurance company, and you're saying, hey, insurance company, I want to give this to you, but in return, I want you to give me an income stream for the rest of my life. I want you to give me that paycheck that I've been so accustomed to earning on a monthly basis. Will you do that? And the insurance company is going to say, yeah, absolutely. Sign here, sign here. So what this individual now can do, all these drawings, is they can trade. They can trade their money, handing it over. In return, they're going to get income. They are trading their money through what is called a SPIA, a single premium, one time, immediate, pay me now, annuity, which is like creating their own pension. Now, historically speaking, on a 65-year-old male, that payout rate, that exchange of money, and then here's the income for the rest of your life, that payout rate has been 10%. So $750,000 is going to generate $75,000 per year, fully guaranteed for the rest of your life. Okay, now let's talk about conventional wisdom here for a second. If I were to cover up half of this screen and say, hey, you got two options. You can either have $1 million or 750. What do you want? It's not a trick question. Everyone's going to say, oh, looks like we got some chats. Everyone's going to say, I want the million. Okay. Everyone's going to say, I want the million. But if we peel those covers back a little bit, and I ask you, hey, would you rather have $35,000 a year that's not guaranteed to you, or $75,000 guaranteed for the rest of your life? Which one would you pick? Yeah, the 75. Okay, now, just because I can only see a couple of you, and I don't want to only call on the same people, I'll say this is Allison and I. Okay, imagine I'm getting ready to retire, and I'm a very skeptical person, but Allison is like tenfold more skeptical than me. So if she was presented, we were presented with this option together. I say, babe, what do you want to do? And she says, well, 75, but hold on a second. What's the catch? There's got to be a catch. This like that makes no sense to me. And we are then told that there is a catch. And the catch is, on the day you die, that income stream of $75,000 stops. So let's play ultimate extremes here. Brent, if you retire on Monday and you get hit by the Coca-Cola truck on Tuesday, that income stops, and Allison, you don't continue to receive it. So do you think she is ever going to allow me to choose that option? Absolutely not. She's going to say, well, by default, we need to be over here. But someone, kind of rhetorical, or if we're in a group, someone answer for me. Remind me again, why is my 401k only 750 instead of the full million? Like over here on the left. It's because I bought thank you. Yes. It's because I bought life insurance, right? So on the day I die, here comes my death benefit, swoop, payable to Allison. And she now gets this big sack of money that she can use to recreate income for the rest of her life. Now, I'm going to introduce this new word to you in this. I love this. Write this one down. Think of the death benefit here as asset insurance. Asset insurance. Not to be confused with Care Solutions. Asset insurance. The death benefit is your permission slip to trade an income producing asset for much larger income while you are living, while not doing a disservice to those you're leaving behind. Okay, now, here's a critical checkpoint that would happen as I'm going through this. So over on the left here, all right, this 35,000, how much is left when you pass away? How much is left? The only acceptable answer here, well, I can tell you what's not acceptable, but here's how much is left. We do not know. Boys, sorry, my dog just started drinking water. We do not know how much is left. Okay, here's the non-acceptable answer. If your client in this moment says, oh, well, yeah, $1 million is left. You did a poor job of explaining those curves. Remember I said that was checkpoint number 2. They needed to understand that that was a withdrawal rate. They were putting their hand in the cookie jar and taking money out at a 3.5% clip. It was not an earnings rate that was keeping that $1 million of principal always intact. Okay, so this is a very, very, very crucial checking for understanding moment. If they say, well, it depends, or, you know, I don't know, or blah, okay, we're good. The only thing they can't say is there's $1 million. Okay, so back into it. Whereas over on the right, we have 100% asset replacement because of this key ratio, which is 1 to 1. We have an equal amount of investment account balance to whole life insurance death benefit. That is the rate that those are the two things being measured. Investment account balance to life insurance death benefit. Okay. Now I'm getting a question of, can you break down a SPIA a little bit more? Yes, I can. And then if this is not deep enough for you, we can take it offline, or in our next session, I'll hit it further. So back to the SPIA. So single premium immediate annuity, hand them, you know, you're trading your money, and in turn, they are giving you that guaranteed paycheck for the rest of your life. Now, depending upon the tenure of Jawan, I think Jawan, I apologize if I mispronounce it. So perhaps are you asking, where is the 10% coming from? Or are you just trying to understand the relationship a little bit further?
I was trying to understand the 750,000 buying the asset and the life insurance. So they're two different buckets, and I'm taking the asset and I'm buying something else, or I'm moving something else into it. And that's
yes, sir. Yeah, good
account that I haven't done anything with yet.
Yes, sir. Good call out. So think of it as this individual, when they get to retirement, they have an apple and they have an orange. The apple is their 401k account balance. The orange is their whole life insurance death benefit. But then what they're going to do is they're going to take their apple, that 401k of $750,000, and they're going to give that to an insurance company. They're going to deposit it into this SPIA, another financial product. This SPIA, one-time transaction. Here's my 750, and then that SPIA is going to spit out for them $75,000 a year for the rest of their life. They still have the orange over here, completely separate product, and that orange is going to come into play when I die, and then it's going to be payable to my wife in this instance, that she can then use that bag of money to create income to the degree she needs. Did that help?
Yes, it just kind of raised up another question. Like if you live 20 years now, so does the death benefit continue to increase, right? Because it's whole life.
Good point. Yes, it would. And so, guys, this is a phenomenal question. Jason, will you make note of this one, and just put down something along the lines of if death occurs long into retirement, because it's almost a double positive with that. Not only would the death benefit, continue to grow, the need for income perhaps either diminishes, or because this annuity, if the surviving spouse was going to use one of these SPIAs to generate the income that they needed as well, one of the biggest drivers of those payout rates is age. So the older someone becomes, it takes less money to generate the same amount of income the older someone is. So just make note of that, Jason, and we'll do like a cool little follow-up on that.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you for asking the question. Okay, so notice, didn't take any more risk. The spouse wasn't disinherited by any means, but $35,000 a year of income versus 75. One not guaranteed, one fully guaranteed. Now, we don't have time to get into it right now, but might that 10% payout rate be too high? Yes, it might be. And when you get into the actual case design for the client, that can be customized. Okay, and we'll go over that here in the future. But that is essentially option number one: creating their own pension by utilization of, when you get to retirement, incorporating a different financial tool, because you have the permission slip of the death benefit allowing you to do so. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Option number two is the exact same setup. There's that fork in the road, right? Exact same setup over on the left. They got your $1 million, 3.5% of income. Still got my apple and my orange, the 750 of the 401k, the 750 of the whole life death benefit. But now comes that other component of the death benefit, which is cash value. And in this case, in this policy, and don't start doing like financial calculations in your mind of how is that possible. This part is just for illustrative purposes, but this individual has $250,000 in their cash value. And that is important, because do they have the same $1 million? They have $1 million over here. They've got 750 here and 250 here. Same $1 million. It's just not all in their right pocket, some in the right and some in the left. And that is possible, by the way. We will send you some third-party white papers that demonstrate that it is possible to not only have the same amount of wealth, the same amount of accumulation, even though we are focused on distribution, the same amount of accumulation is still possible to obtain. Okay, but here's what's going to happen. Option number two is, rather than trading your money and putting it into that SPIA and creating your pension, you're going to leave that money, the 750, still invested in the market, just like the $1 million is. But here's the difference. Because we have this cash value that in all of those years when your account balance could go backwards, and we know that it's guaranteed to increase, because we have that uncorrelated asset, we now can distribute at a higher rate. Okay, we can now leave our money invested and pull out at a higher rate, because we have the cash value there. So in this example, and then I'll walk you through this as well. We are still going to withdraw 10%. But here's how we're going to do it. Year 1, year 2, year 3, and so on. So year 1, we are going to take our 10% out of the account, which is $75,000. Okay, and again, I like to go with extremes here because sometimes it helps illustrate a point. Let's say that you retired on January 1st. So on January 1st, you took $75,000 out of your investment account. Okay, and you lived your life throughout the rest of that year, traveling, spoiling the grandkids, whatever it is you're going to do. And at the end of the year, December 31st, you log into your investment account to see how was the performance over these last 364 days. And if you did not earn the amount you withdrew, in this case 10%, then the next year, which would be one day later, January 1st of year 2, you do not take money out of your investment account. But you still have to eat, you still have to travel, you still want to spoil the grandkids. Where might that $75,000 come from? Yeah, you guessed it. It comes from the cash value. Okay, so you take your $75,000 out of your cash value. You live your life, you spoil the grandkids, you travel. And at the end of year 2, you log back into your investment account. You didn't take any money out of it this year. And if you had positive growth, if you grew year over year, then in year 3, you can go back to taking your $75,000 out. Okay, and we are going to repeat that process however many times we can, meaning however many years of income we have built up in our cash value and how much we are taking out, we're going to do that however many times we can. Key point here, folks, is this is reacting to the market. It is not predicting the market. Remember I said the 2 problems that we can't answer: how long am I going to live? And now that I have my money, how is it going to perform from this point moving forward? We don't know what's going to happen. So it should take your money out, wait the entire year and see what happened. And that dictates your next move. So let's see how this plays out back on that interactive calculator here. Okay, so now we're keeping everything the same. We no longer have $1 million, right? Because we bought life insurance with it. So we don't have $1 million, we have 750,000. Okay, so 10% of 750,000 would be $75,000. All right. Now you notice here that it's the exact same story. If we have to withdraw our money out of that account every single year, we are broke between that 13th and 14th year. But that's not what we're going to do because we have the cash value sitting on the sideline. Hey, coach, put me in. Right? So let's go like this. Let's just focus on that first year. Okay, again, I take my 75 grand out on January 1st, travel, spoil the grandkids, do all of that. And then you log back in and we see, oh, okay, I earned 3.48%. I earned just over 3%. It's better than losing, but I did not earn the 10% that I withdrew. So the start of next year, I do not take any money out of this account. I hit the pause button. And instead, I take the $75,000 out of my cash value. You all with me on that? Okay. So throughout the rest of year 2, I used my cash value for my income, that 75. And then at the end of that year, I log in and I see, oh, nice. I earned 14%. That's great. What a rebound. That's awesome. Okay. So the start of year 3, I can now take my $75,000 out of here. So I take my $75,000 out on January 1st of year 3. At the end of the year, I log in and I'm like, oh, this is, my gosh, this is fantastic. I earned almost 20%. This is great. So I can do it again. So year 4, I take my 75 grand out again. Life is good. Spoiling grandkids traveling. But then I log in and I go, oh gosh, not only did I take my 75 grand out, I also lost almost 15%. Yikes. I need to pump the brakes. So that means in year 5, I do not take money out of this account. And as we did in year 2, I now hit up my cash value again. I take $75,000 out of my whole life policy. But then I log back into my investment account at the end of that year, and golly, I just got crushed again. Another 26%. Okay, so the start of year 6, I do not take money out again. 2 years in a row, I pull 75 grand from my cash value, assuming I had enough in there to do that, right? We're going to repeat this process however many times that we can. All right. But the end of year 6, I log in and hallelujah. Okay, I earned over 30%. My account recovered, which, as we went over last time, every dollar that you have that's generating your income, those are your employees. Their job is to provide you income. And we went over gain is arithmetic, loss is exponential. Okay, the start of year 6, boom, we're back on track. We earn almost 37%. So let's just fast forward. In year 7, I can take my 75 grand out again, and we would repeat this as many times as possible. But look what just happened. Without that buffer, without that pause button, because of the cash value over here, we went broke in the 13th, 14th year. To now just having the ability to hit pause 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Look what happened. We were actually able to not only sustain our much higher withdrawal rate, we also actually grew our asset base a little bit. This ends up being like a jaw-dropping moment for most clients. You know, candidly, thinking back to the ones that it wasn't for me, it was probably just that I was doing such a poor job of explaining it, because this is impactful. Okay, so the reality is both of these 2 options only exist for your clients at the time of retirement if they have whole life insurance to their name. Whole life insurance is the key to unlocking both of those options. Because without them, notice on the left, the default, here's my money, 3.5 or less, we were being generous, withdrawal rate, and it's not guaranteed. Okay. Now, let me give you an example here. Here is a sample summary page that basically you'll be able to show the client, if you keep doing what you're doing, here's what your world looks like, versus if we begin with the end in mind and implement whole life insurance today, when you get to retirement, here's what those 2 strategies mean for you. Okay. And I will tell you this, that I believe, this is my opinion, it is the narrative, it is the story, it is everything that we went over in meeting 1 and up until this point in meeting 2 that are going to earn that business or not. It is not what these numbers look like. In fact, I tell people all the time that I would much rather prefer the client going into underwriting by seeing a sample summary page, a sample case, rather than their own, to take the emotion out of it. Because what happens is when they say, oh my gosh, this is great, 40% increase, how are you doing that? And you then have to go through the accounting of, we're backing this down and we're adding it to whole life and blah, 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 blah. And the net result, still not, and no new money, still saving the same amount. But you tell them, hey, you're going to put $12,000 a year into whole life insurance. It's too big of a number. It is, they get sticker shock, and it's like poof, they immediately forgot all of the great information you gave them, and they fall back to, wait a minute, I've always been told whole life insurance is terrible, and I shouldn't have that. Okay, so to help overcome that, I believe showing a sample case allows for them just to logically look at things and say, okay, this is making sense to me. So I'm going to share with you how I would close this and get into underwriting. But first, here's the numbers that you're looking at. Okay, this orange, this salmon color here, is basically saying if they keep focusing on growth, it's that left side that we just drew out. If they keep focusing on growth of their money alone, they were 40 here. This was a 25-year time period. They would have income of just over $90,000. Whereas if they took the other path, the fork to the right, and added some whole life insurance to their plan, when they got to retirement, they either could utilize option number one and have almost 130,000 of total income, or option number two and also have about 130,000 of total income with 4 years of buffer of a cash value built up in their policy. What we're aiming for is 3 to 5 years, at least 3 to 5 years, 4 years. And notice this right here, this number here, 103, that is the amount guaranteed. Okay, so their total income, 129, but the amount that's guaranteed just over 100. Whereas without you in their life, they have 90,000 not guaranteed to them. Okay, this is the power of owning whole life insurance in retirement. And now, unfortunately, we only have 5 more minutes, and there were 2 more things I want to do. But let me just share this with you here. And Jason, can you role play this with me real quick?
You bet.
And remind me again, what is your wife's name?
Jody.
Jody. Okay, so Jason, let's say that you and Jody decided that you were going to. Let me pause. So I used to when I with this idea of getting them into underwriting without seeing their numbers, I remember it so clearly. I'm like, my gosh, how on earth would I do that? And like, they need to be able to see it. They need to feel it. And how would I do that without like being, salesy and slick? And this guy, John Stewart, taught this to me. He said, it's simple. Do it like this. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. And so I stole it. So here's what that was. All right. So Jason, say that you and Jody decided that you guys were going to move and you were going to buy a new home, but you knew you weren't going to pay cash for that home. What would be the first thing that you guys do?
Well, we'd consider a mortgage.
Okay. Yeah. So you does that mean like you would maybe talk to a bank and
Yeah,
see what you could get?
we would go to our trusted personal banker and explore the possibilities of mortgage loans.
Yeah, and determine how much you can get.
Yeah, exactly. Boil it down.
And
Basically, what it's going to boil down to is what can we afford?
yeah, and why would you do that? It's because you guys don't want to be out house hunting and say, oh my gosh, I love this beautiful home and it's $500,000, and then be told, you guys can only qualify for 300, right? Same thing has to happen here. Jason, if you want to have either one of these options available to you, we have to get you pre-approved. Now, I don't know what these numbers are going to look like, but we have to start that pre-approval process. But Jason, let me ask you this. If the bank came back to you and Jody and said, hey guys, congratulations, you qualify for a $500,000 home. Do you have to buy a $500,000 home?
Absolutely not.
No. In fact, could you guys say, actually, you know what? The timing's not right. We're going to stay where we are for a little bit longer and look again in the future. Could you do that as well?
Mm-hmm.
Jason, same thing here. It's not tying into anything or getting you, committed to whatever that might look like. But if you want the ability to have either one of these options available to you, we need to get you pre-approved. Now that process is a 2-step process. The first one is someone's going to come to your home or place of business, ask you some health history questions, height, weight, blood, urine, take about 30 to 45 minutes. And the second one is we need to complete an application. Now there's a lot of carryover information from those two. So we'll do the application afterwards. Once those 2 are completed, it's sent to the insurance company for pre-approval. Now, Jason, I don't know what your situation might look like. I need to gather a little bit more of financial details from you, but is there any reason you can think of to not get started?
Is there any cost to that application process?
No, sir. Just like
Okay.
with, well, can't say just not like the bank, because maybe there is a little bit of an application
Yeah.
fee, but no, sir. Same
right.
thing of, yeah.
Then I'm in.
Okay, so it's been a while since I've done that, y'all. I had two of my things out of order, but that is how the dialogue goes every single time. And I think it's because people have been conditioned that they know they've either bought a home and they get approval first for how much they can afford, or if they haven't done it, they know that that's the logical thing for them to do. It's the same thing here. I believe that people need to go into underwriting at this moment, knowing that having a piece of whole life insurance, even without understanding what it might look like totally or figured out, the power of owning it is what they want. And then we will figure out all the numbers and what's the case going to look like on the back end. So and there are some people that would say, you know what, I really want to see what type of an impact could be made and blah, blah, blah. And that's great. I'm not saying like kick them out of your office, but I would, before in the next meeting, before I show that to them, I would rehash this and make sure they can explain to me what's taking place, what's happening, so that when we get to the accounting of things, I'm trying to minimize the likelihood of any sort of sticker shock. Okay. Now, what I wanted to show you real quick that we won't do just because we have one more minute was that case that I showed you on the front meeting when it was specific to your clients. I wanted to circle back on that and show you this idea of having the proper amount or too much or not enough. It is extremely powerful. And actually, you know what, Jason, Dennis, Colleen, I'll let you tell me, can we go 5 more minutes, or do you want to maybe start next meeting with that?
No, let's go.
Roll. Okay. So check this out, because I think this is super helpful. All right. So this was Kara and Daniel, and I'm not going to show you the information like last time, but they were making 180,000 combined income. And back to this idea of the 1-to-1 ratio. What you see here, okay, is if they just had a piece of whole life insurance, it wasn't quite 1-to-1. It was about 25%. Okay, about 25%. The impact was still there. Okay, they had now $50,000 guaranteed to them, but it was about an 11% increase in income from 98,932 to 109. Okay, and the premium was just under $6,000, not new money, just reposition of dollars. Okay, are they in a better position? Yes. Is it jumping up and down worthy? Well, that's for them to be determined, but I think we could all agree we're not too excited about the impact that we made, right? So let's look at that exact same situation with the proper 1-to-1 ratio. We go from 110,000 of income to 133, an additional $23,000 a year of income for them, a 35% increase from if they just keep doing what they're doing, versus beginning with the end in mind, which also, guys, required them repositioning about $15,000 per year into life insurance. Okay, but now watch this. So if they were like, oh my gosh, I love this, can we do more? Remember this premium, $15,000. Watch this. If they wanted to do more, and their income right here was 133,000. Okay, if they did more, check this out. They increased premium, meaning they bought more insurance, $2,500 more of it. Their income went from 133 back to 100. In fact, it's a 25% reduction from what they did if they had that proper balance. And what's really cool about this, or what's happening here, guys, is over that time period, we're taking too much cash flow away from building wealth, and we're using it to acquire insurance. And then there's less there to create income with. It's that perfect balance that we're after. And so the point here is Are people better off with a piece than not? Well, yes, we can see it, but we can also prove the proper amount, and we can back it up by saying if you do more than that, it's having an inverse effect to you. Also, what we're teeing up here, folks, is not everyone. In fact, I would say the majority of people won't go at that optimum level right out the gates. You just built in your annual review with them. You completely just built your annual review agenda. Incredible. Last thing I'm going to leave you with. I know we're closing fast here. I apologize for that. Let's say that Kara and Daniel were like, you know what? Gosh, I love the 133 here. I love that, but I've been conditioned all my life to not buy whole life insurance. It's good for nothing, you know, blah, blah, blah. How much more wealth would they need to generate the difference of income that we're creating for them just to be equal? Watch this. And I would have the client take out their cell phone and follow along with me. For the sake of time, you can either do that or watch the screen. Let's say they wanted 133,503 of income. They want that. And they're on track for 98,932. Okay. So it's an additional almost $35,000 a year. How much more wealth would they need? How much bigger would their bag need to be to generate the gap that we're providing to them? How would we find that out? We would divide it by our withdrawal rate, which we already had agreement from with them that was 3.5%. So divide by 0.035 and then pick their mouth up off of the desk. So here's the equivalent, back to this idea of efficiency from a cash flow perspective. By them acquiring whole life insurance to the tune of repositioning $15,000 per year into it, it was the equivalent of them needing to grow their assets, their wealth, by an additional almost $1 million. What you would see here, if we really went deeper into this, is for them to have another $1 million, you can only obtain that in one of three ways. You either save more money, and if you recall, they were already really good savers. You either save more money, you take more risk, okay, or you work longer, just to be equal to what adding whole life insurance to their plan was going to provide for them. Again, that is the undeniable power of owning whole life insurance in retirement. I am done.
Nice. Applause. Thank you, Brent.
You're welcome.
That was masterful in, really about an hour. So thank you for that. Want to make sure everybody caught some of the terminology there as we kind of came into home base. I don't know if you noticed in some of those latest visuals that Brent put out, you could see the Wealth Building Cornerstones title. You saw the 2 economic power strategy. So that's the strategy that Brent basically just rolled out for us, the strategy of covered assets, otherwise known as our investment accumulation in our accounts, and the strategy of the volatility buffer, which is otherwise known as whole life insurance. So I want to make sure that you caught all of that. This was really technical. Now we can see why Brent said that really from all 5 of these sessions, we're not going to necessarily have all of the technical know-how to go out and begin executing this. But we're getting there. We're getting somewhere. And we as well, leadership, will come around this and figure out what gaps need to be filled out in the details of the doing. But also we have some resources that we can continue to take in. So this might be a session you want to go back to and watch again on the video recording, or at least just the last half an hour. I would encourage people to consider that, as well as Colleen is going to send out a white paper or 2 on wealth building cornerstones so that we can kind of get that whole broad view perspective of what's happening here. But what we just witnessed today is the heart of wealth building cornerstones. It's not another Money Guide Pro option, although it does show up in software. It's a strategy, and here's the strategy that we just saw. So want to leave you with all of that. There were some questions during the session. I know that Dennis and Brent addressed some of those publicly, as well as Colleen. Dennis tried to catch everybody on a one-on-one basis. If you did not get your question answered, give a shout out to Dennis, Colleen, or I. But Dennis, what do you have on that?
I totally get that this is conceptual, and a lot of times people get stuck on something and it just doesn't jive. Reach out to us, don't be stuck. Rewatch it or reach out to Colleen or I, and who have worked with this, and say, okay, where were they coming up with that? Or what, that 1-to-1 ratio, what was he talking about? We're happy to assist in that kind of stuff in between sessions.
Absolutely. That's great. Yeah. Don't be shy, reach out, take initiative. We'll huddle up on the phone, in person, Zoom, whatever. That's a good word. Okay. Well, let's stop there. Thank you again, Brent. We'll see you next week, as well as hopefully everybody else. Have a great time in the first and second round of the NCAA tournament. Good luck in your brackets. Peace.
Thanks, guys. See you later.